Hey there everyone, and welcome to React Native Design. In this video, we're going to talk about how we can have a different component in a separate file and can bring that up in our existing file. Okay, so right now our app looks like this. We haven't done anything in it. This is open up your start and start working. So let's just change this for a customary thing that I'm going to call this as am I am a component, because actually it is. So I'm going to just say I'm a component. Save that. You can go back and you can just press Command R, but it is already enabled for auto reload. And yes, you can literally press Command R. If you're on the Windows, you can hit R twice and it is going to just reload like that. You don't have to compile anything and all of that. Now the goal is to define a separate component and bring that in our file. So let's just walk through with that. So first of all, onto the directory folder proj1 native, right click here and create a new folder. And I like to keep everything inside my app, or maybe sometimes in component, depends on how you want to have your directory structure. So in this case, let's just have components just like that. Okay. And in this component directory, all of my components are going to be placed. Sometimes I like to have like app, then inside that component and images and all of that, but it's totally up to you. In that, we're going to create a new file, and I'm going to call this as, let's just call this as Superman, superman.js. This is our Superman component. Okay. Now notice, since we have a .js extension, we can use our snippets that we have already installed or kind of a pasted. So I can just say RNC and can hit the tab, and automatically the boilerplate code is being filled up for me. Now here is the syntax that you should definitely follow. Now, whatever the name of your file is, in this case, it's superman.js. Notice I have an uppercase S there. The class should be named exactly the same. So there we are going to call this as Superman, and make sure the case sensitivity do really matters a lot. In this case, we have written directly export default to the class, but there is another way in which you can just cut that out and can paste that at the bottom here separately and can say export default Superman and just like that. This is also a valid syntax, but here we are using an extra line, and here we are just doing it in just one line. So depends on what you prefer. Both are completely okay. And make sure that export is there, because otherwise you're not exporting anything from this file, so it cannot be used in the other file. Okay, so this is really important. Okay, now by default it just says written here, and I'm gonna just say I am Superman. This is just a text element. And now we can see we have a container flex. Some of the classes are being defined here, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later. Right now, I just want to have a Superman class here. That's it. No big deal. Okay. So now I want to import this into my app.js. So how I can do that? First of all, go into app.js. Now, first of all, the very first thing that you have to do is import statement. So just write import and the name of the component that you want to have. In this case, Superman is my component, and from where you want to import it. In this case, you have to put two single quotes, then /represent your current directory. If your component is in the current directory, this means you can just write the component name. Since my component is inside the component and my app.js is here. So first of all, I'm into current directory. That means /. Then I have to go inside the components. So components, and then inside the components, I can see there is a superman.js. So I can simply write /superman.js. Now here's an important part. If that is a JS extension, means it's a .js file, you don't need to write JS. Of course you can write, but there is no such need. If the file is of some other extension that you want to import, like a JSON file, then you have to write completely .json or whatever you want to have. Now, once you have that got imported, then you can simply write that here. So your component is going to be Superman. Make sure the case sensitivity do really matters a lot here. And you have a closing tag as well. So this is what you are having. Now again, do remember one thing. We are still following the rule number 1. That means our render can only return one element. Notice here in the Superman, our render is only returning this view, which is again one element technically. And in our app.js, we are returning just this view. Now inside this view, we can have multiple elements like Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, whatever you like to have. So this is pretty good. Okay. Now what we can do is we can just come up here and we see nothing here. And you know what's the reason behind that? everything is being displayed, but it's being hidden in the top notch of this top notch of the apple that nobody likes. So what we can do is we're going to write our very first styling code to just push that a little bit bottom. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to just enter here and we're going to say margin top. Again, it is not margin dash top, it's margin top. And I'm going to just say like 50. And again, you'll be surprised to know there are no units in React Native like 50 pixel or 50% or 50 EM. It's not. So notice both the components are here now. I am component and I am Superman. So both are there. So we have successfully imported a component from other file into our file. Now here comes an interesting question that a lot of people ask. Why there is no unit in React Native? It can be pixel or something, or it can be DPI, like density, pixels and all of that. Now the reason why is the React Native is smart enough to know that what you really want to say. Now for the Android, it will automatically convert that to DPI and whatever the relative unit for that is. And for iOS, it's really the pixel intensity is quite high on the retinas and all of that. So it's gonna automatically interpret what you really want to say. You just have to rely on it just like 50, and it's gonna just shrink it 50. It will behave differently a little bit on the other devices, but it will try to keep the consistency there. So you don't need to worry about anything. 50 is gonna work just like that. If you have said, hey, I want to just say 100, it's gonna look like 100, a little bit more. So it's gonna be more like that, okay? So really an easy movie, and you notice that you have a Superman component. Now the best part is, now in the something else project, if you want, just imagine this is a Tinder card that you want to design, the swipe things, and this is all the logic of the card. What you can do is you can just bring this file into your another project, and notice since you have defined all of the stylings and everything just in one file, you can bring that Tinder card into your another project and it's gonna work just like that. And that is why we define all the stylings in one here. Okay, so this was all the basics of importing, and this is all what we'll be doing in this entire course, making up a lot of components so that you can use them in your other projects as well. They are gonna just work like that, okay? So this was all about the React Native basics, and trust me, that is it. We are not gonna go into much depth of props and states and on component load and view did load and all of that. We'll talk about that later on, a little bit about props. But right now, the next thing that we need to understand is the Flexbox, because Flexbox is a little bit different in React Native. So let's move on to the next video and talk about the React Native Flexbox.